Excuse me. All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Whistle, the Drew Falletta Show. It is Wednesday, February 21st. A lot of good stuff tonight. Obviously, college basketball-wise, North Carolina Syracuse is on right now. First, I'd like to give a little shout-out to my sponsors before we get started here with my next guest. I'd love to give a shout-out to my sponsor, Aliquippa Wholesale Tire, Mark Gola of Remax Realty, Global Professional Football Scouting, and a shout out to YGB. You got to believe United. So for my next guest, he is a Pitt graduate. He's lived in Pittsburgh since 2000. He is the son of Steelers and NFL Hall of Famer Mike Webster. Before I introduce him, I just want to thank him very much for giving me this platform and giving me the opportunity to speak with him. We shot the breeze a little bit and talked for a few minutes. Very great guy, very nice guy. So I just want to thank him very much for giving me this opportunity. I'm very honored. For my next guest, Garrett Webster. Garrett, how's everything going tonight, sir?
It's going good. Just kind of flipping through the channels, watching some of the Olympics, and just kind of seeing what's on. So it's kind of that weird part of the year.
It absolutely is. Has the Olympics interest you at all? I tried to watch a little bit of curling on Saturday, and I just can't find a way to get into it. What do you think it is?
Your first problem is you started watching curling. You start watching something else, maybe that would help a little bit. But I mean, it's the Olympics. It's always fun, or not fun, but just I guess what's the word? It's very dramatic watching these athletes who represent their country and are out there,
right?
Kind of competing against each other and stuff like that. Especially when it's the events that are head to head. I think the Summer Olympics are a little more fun than the Winter Olympics. Just because with the winter, it's not they're athletes you don't really ever see in any kind of a way.
Right.
Olympic hockey is great.
Right.
Although it's weird because I think this is the first time in a while they haven't had the NHL players there, which
right.
I mean it's funny in the Summer Olympics. I wish in basketball they would take college and amateurs and
right.
I wish they could trade off kind of in two different ways. Keep doing pros for hockey, but do the amateurs for basketball. But yeah, the Summer Olympics is fun and it's something to watch. I can't wait to kind of baseball get going and
right.
the bigger sports kind of kick back in here.
Especially you being from Wisconsin, I've been doing a little research here on my hockey stuff. I'm on a hockey session. I might have to have you on again for some hockey talk.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean the Penguins have been kind of I think they kind of waited this year until the Steelers kind of got kicked out of the playoffs before they kind of really kicked things into gear. But they seem to be doing all right now. They just got to get in the playoffs.
Absolutely. So obviously, like I said in the beginning, we spoke a little bit. It's funny we kind of have the same interest of a few things. One is WWE is I'm a huge fan as well, and also history. I am into cars in a little bit. Unfortunately, I've never had nice cars like all my friends, but I do enjoy that. So I want to ask you, what part of history really interests you as a human being?
I think everybody, people who are into history, especially, not to sound sexist, but guys usually have a war or some kind of historical event that they kind of,
right,
for whatever reason, are kind of interested in. And I've always been a World War II guy. It's just, to me, it's just, there's just so much of it that's, amazing for so many different reasons, and so many things that have spun out of that conflict. So many technologies, so many scientific breakthroughs,
right.
The politics of the region. Obviously, there are a lot of horrible things happen, but
right.
in a lot of good has come out of those horrible things, and it's just everything. And plus, you got the Nazis who are the ultimate bad guys. Indiana Jones punches them in the mouth. So
right.
It's like a comic book come to life. Not to make light of their atrocities and stuff like that, but it's an amazing thing. And there's larger than life heroes, and there's villains, and just everything. So World War II to me, my dad was the same way. Although my dad was more into the Kennedy assassination.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of the Kennedy assassination, Titanic, the Old West. He definitely followed World War II. We would watch a ton of those documentaries together. We go to Best Buy and Walmart and get those for $3. Get 800 hours of World War II footage.
Right.
It's the same documentary over and over again. But we'd watch those constantly. But the Kennedy assassination was a big thing for him, which anybody who grew up when that happened, it's kind of like 9/11 is for this generation. It's that big, life-changing event that
right.
Everybody kind of, knows about and pays attention to.
Right. And coming from Wisconsin, different background, a little two-part question here. How was the transition coming from the Midwest of Wisconsin, and how was your time as a student at the University of Pittsburgh? Excuse me.
To answer your first part is, Wisconsin is it's a very first off, I was amazed that I could not be frozen to death when I went outside.
Right.
December, pretty much October through April, but it's a very different place. It's it's much more spread out, and the cities are very people know each other. There's kind of Madison, there's Milwaukee, and that's pretty much it, honestly. Everything else is just some very, very small communities. There's a lot of farms, a lot of flat land. You can see for miles all around you, which is weird when you come here. You got the mountains.
Right.
Here everybody's kind of brought together by their family, their friends. The Steelers. The sports scene. Everybody in Pittsburgh's kind of got that same sense of humor, and it's not that way in Wisconsin. It's I remember a previous job I worked in Wisconsin, and I tell a kind of a Pittsburgh joke. Even though I spent about 10 years in Wisconsin, I kind of if you're born here, you spend any time here, you kind of start picking up some of that Pittsburgh kind of ragging on each other kind of sense of community. And people in Wisconsin don't get that. It's a very closed-minded, I guess, society in a certain way.
Right.
So coming out here was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It was a shock to me because people knew who my dad was, and the way they would talk about him, because your dad's Mike Webster and stuff like that. But they also kind of treated him like a regular guy too, which is what my dad wanted. He was never a hey, look at me guy. Obviously, being a lineman, even if you were a hey, look at me guy, you're never going to get that.
Right.
As an offensive lineman, but he liked to be able to go to his bookstores or go to Kinko's or go to some of the shops we go and look around at, and he'd see the people who knew him, and they would come up and say hi and stuff like that, just like they would a regular person. And he really appreciated that. And if somebody, hopefully this doesn't sound arrogant at all, but if somebody was like it was a big deal to meet him, he could say hello to them, and he knew he was making their day, I guess, but it wasn't like it became obnoxious or they, people in Pittsburgh would expect him to, sit around for hours and stuff like that. Everybody was very nice. And in Wisconsin, it was almost like, they looked at our family as kind of like, oh, what did you guys move back to Wisconsin for? Or you're too good to be living here. So it was like, there's a lot of judgment of that, especially with the struggles my dad was going through and stuff like that. That was tough. But in Pittsburgh, we never, still to this day, and even back then, we never felt that my dad didn't feel it. And I think that was the reason we always came back.
Right. And then, go ahead, sorry.
As for being a student at Pitt, now I do want to say I didn't graduate from Pitt. I usually had trouble waking up before 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
I apologize.
I mean, that NCAA football wasn't going to win that championship. I mean, Walt Harris sure as hell wasn't going to do it, so I had to step up where I could.
Wow.
But going to Pitt, it was one of those things where, growing up, people always tell you to kind of appreciate the things you have and, take a moment. And of course, being a little kid, or not a little kid, but being a young man, you don't understand that stuff. You don't realize it till 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years later.
Right.
And, I didn't recognize number one, how great, I really enjoyed going to Pitt. It's down in the city and stuff, but it's also got kind of that Pittsburgh little city feel. There's all these neat restaurants. There's Carson Street. There's the original hot dog shop. I got very many $3.99 grease-filled pizzas at 2 o'clock in the morning. Matter of fact, I used to tell them to put extra grease on it. I really did love Pitt, and and I'm not. I don't have any illusions. I know I kind of got into Pitt because of who my dad was, because I was going to go play football there.
Right. And
I got in because of who my dad was. Also because, I was a big kid. I was 6'8". I don't think I was a very good football player, especially considering, who my dad was and the pedigree and the talent I did have. But I'm sure the coaches there also saw some. But it was an honor to go there and to play and get a chance to experience college life like a normal kid, and that was something that really the whole time I was in Pittsburgh, from high school to the little bit I was at Pitt and stuff like that. I never felt any judgment. I felt a pride about who my dad was and stuff like that. Just like somebody whose dad was a hard worker in the community and everybody kind of knew him and stuff like that. And that's kind of how I felt. I was proud of my dad. I wasn't never embarrassed to say like who he was and stuff like that. And being at Pitt and being at Pitt, being at high school in Moon Township and out here, I got a chance to experience things I'd never experienced in my life before, and I wouldn't trade that stuff for the world. And I'm glad I came out here.
That's awesome, man. And we obviously greatly appreciate you and your father and everything he did for the city. So for my next question here. And outside of football, you kind of answered it, but how was your dad? I didn't see your dad as, I did a little bit of my research, look at some pictures. I didn't see your dad as a flashy guy. He wasn't, a Deion Sanders type where he was wearing the gold chains, had the nice cars, the $300 pair of shades. I felt like your dad was the type of guy that could go to a hole-in-the-wall bar, have an Iron City beer with a regular Joe and just have a conversation and laugh and treat them like a normal human being and make their day. How was your dad outside of football?
Well, first off, congratulations on saying an Iron City beer. That's the way it's correctly pronounced. But, I think that, first off, I don't think the Steelers really, at any point in time, any football player here, I don't think would last for any real length of time. Right. Being even Terry Bradshaw, who I think you could argue is probably the Steeler that had maybe the most media impact. He did a country album. He did. He was in Smokey and the Bandit and stuff like that. Right. He was kind of a big deal, but everything he did was kind of with that self-deprecating kind of sense of humor, and he did it because it was fun. He didn't do it to be like, oh, I'm better than you. Right. And I think my dad was that way. He when I was growing up, he would always tell us, act like you could do anything and the world is your oyster and all that kind Wisconsin, like I was saying, you know, it's not like here where, you know, if my dad would walk into someplace, people would, you know, it's funny. I remember Barnes & Noble. Me and my dad used to go read books there all the time. And the people at Barnes & Noble would get the special kind of ice cream for his root beer floats because my dad loved root beer floats.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, my dad, that was like, you know, I think that was like one of the benefits he definitely indulged in for being quote unquote famous,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that he enjoyed. But, you know, that's all he ever really, you know, would want in the kind of like, oh, I'm a big deal kind of way. And if it wasn't there, it's never like he appreciated that they were doing that, you know. But he, you know, growing up in Wisconsin, it was more just like, oh, let's not talk to him about it, or, oh, he's the guy. Because we were struggling at that point.
Right.
And, you know, so it was kind of like everything was kind of on the down low. Don't mention it. Don't bring it up. Don't talk about it. So we never really felt proud or knew how big of a deal my dad was.
Right.
You know, I remember when my dad got in the Hall of Fame in '97. You know, in a weird way, you know, I was just like, oh, you know, there'll be nobody there. He's an offensive lineman, blah, 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 blah. You know, and then we go there, and there's all these Steeler fans, you know, with the Iron Mike posters and, you know, chanting, here we go Steelers and stuff. And that was shocking to all of us in a good way, you know, and it was awesome. And it was just kind of crazy to see. So we never had that, you know, growing up, we're football players, we're better than anybody, or my dad was never somebody who indulged. And you know, probably the most expensive thing he had is every couple of years he'd go and buy a new pair of cowboy boots and cowboy hat. Mm-hmm. And that would be about his biggest expense for himself.
Right. No, that's great stuff, man. I appreciate you sharing that. So what were your dad's hobbies though? What did he did he like play basketball? He liked fishing, he liked the golf. Did you guys you know, did he want to do stuff with you? Obviously I'm sure he did, but you guys have any hobbies together, or did he have any separate hobbies of his own outside of football?
Well, there's sort of, you know, there's you know, two ways to say, you know, there's you know, healthy dad and then dad after he's, you know, started struggling and stuff like that. You know, when he was healthy, he loved to fish, he loved to hunt, he loved to kind of go out and be, you know, kind of active and do stuff, you know. And plus there was a time too when, you know, when you went to the Pro Bowl or you got a bonus in your contract, you didn't get, you know, $10 million or something like that. You know, I remember my mom, you know, my dad's first contract, I believe, with the Steelers, or one of his contract extensions, one part of his signing bonus was a turkey for Thanksgiving dinner. And, you know, so these were guys, when you won awards, you got hunting trips, you got fishing trips, you got to go to places and stuff like that. You didn't get big, you know, rings or jewelry or trophies and stuff like that. So, you know, my dad took advantage of that and really liked doing that stuff. But, you know, he also, you know, had some things that kind of stuck with him throughout his entire life, even when he was struggling and stuff like that, was, you know, he loved to read. You know, growing up, that was a big emphasis in our household. You know, we were, even when we were poor and stuff like that, you know, my mom and dad always made sure we had books to read, and he loved history. He loved talking about that stuff.
Right.
He loved John Wayne. That was his hero. We used to watch, you know, John Wayne movies forever. Even to this day, if I watch a Clint Eastwood movie, I feel like a traitor.
That's actually funny, Garrett, because I actually love John Wayne too. So that's actually funny. Your dad's a big fan. Because I actually follow John Wayne stuff on Twitter. I'm a huge fan as well. You wouldn't think I'm only 27, but I have appreciation for that. Whenever my grandfather used to watch that.
Oh yeah, no, and we, you know, we watched those things. You know, me and him would always try to play catch. We loved to play catch, whether it was with a baseball or a football. You know, we'd go out and we'd play catch and talk and stuff like that. You know,
right.
But with the biggest thing my dad loved more than anything was being a dad. You know,
yeah, and
that was what he loved. And with all of us kids, he had kind of our thing with each one of us. You know,
sure.
You know, with my brother Colin, was much more like my dad in the way, like he loved to work out. He loved to, you know, he kind of had that stubborn way. You know, my dad did in a good way, you know, with kind of working hard at things and stuff like that. So they would talk about that stuff. And, you know, my sister, Hilly, and stuff, you know, my dad would talk about Titanic and, you know, I think Harry Potter was just coming out, so my dad would read her those books and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, he always tried to take an interest in things. You know, like with me, he would take an interest in, WWF. For example, one of my best memories of my dad was after my dad got in the Hall of Fame in '98. He took me as a birthday gift to King of the Ring when the Undertaker threw Mankind off Hell in a Cell, and he took me, and it was one of the best, funnest experiences of my life.
Right.
And, we never went to sporting events together. I think maybe we went to one baseball game when I was young, and he first signed with Kansas City that I can remember. But when we went to King of the Ring, I remember my dad going to it. He would eat ice cream with me, and I remember Undertaker, when he threw him off the cell, my dad was going nuts just like me, and everything. And then, I also remember, about, what was it, about 6-7 months before he passed away, he took me to see the new Star Wars movie. Star Wars was always a big thing with me and my dad because, when my dad wasn't around a lot, I remember one weekend they had, this was back before video on demand and all that stuff. I'm sure if there's anybody younger than 20 listening to me right now, they're probably like, oh, that must have been hell.
Right, yeah.
But, there was once a year, the Star Wars movies are on TV. Everybody's got to watch it. Or the James Bond movies would be on PBS and TNT for New Year's and stuff like that. And, he would specifically stay an extra 2 days to watch all 3 Star Wars movies with me because I'd never seen them. And so about 6 months before he passed away, that was Attack of the Clones came out. And my dad went to see it with me. And he usually didn't like being out in public too much, especially when he was struggling.
Right.
But he went and saw it with me. And I don't, if you've seen the movie, there's a scene in the part where Yoda jumps up and has his first fight scene. It's the first time you ever see him fight. And my dad, 50-year-old Mike Webster jumps out of his chair and he starts, cheering because, those guys had never seen, Yoda fight and stuff. So he kind of acted like a little boy, and that was stuff that, I really enjoyed, and my dad really kind of an example of what his hobbies were and what he enjoyed. Because he did get in, I know there's a lot of picture painted of him of things being so bad for him and for us, but there was a lot of good times on the journey, so to say.
Right.
And, my dad took a lot of pleasure in doing things that us as kids liked, or, he loved to learn. He loved to interact with kids like, I know that I have a few players who are on my high school football team that, my dad would always try to go up and say, hey, you had a good game, or I remember when our high school coach, did stuff. He wanted to be a regular dad. That's I think if I could say what my dad wished would have happened after he retired, he would have just liked to be a regular dad. And, that was kind of his hobby when he got to do things like that.
Right. And was he close to any teammates outside of football? Jack Ham obviously went to Penn State. I believe he's in the Pittsburgh area now. Was he close with Jack at all, or any Steelers, Jack Lambert, Jack Ham, any of those guys at all?
Well, to an extent, yeah. Also I think that during that time of the 70s and 80s and that generation of football players, football was a game, but it was also we have families to get back to, we have other things to do,
right,
and stuff like that. I know he was very close with Tunch and with Craig Wolfley. We always used to, growing up, I remember when somebody told me his name was Tunch, I said, who the hell is that? Because we used to call him Tunch. That's what my dad would call him on the phone. He was Tunch. Right. So that's what we always thought his name was. And then we also knew, those were the guys, and of course linemen are always going to kind of stick together even now. But, that's what but a lot of the guys, Lambert and stuff like that, my dad, unfortunately, and this was kind of, they say everybody has one of the 7 deadly sins, and my dad was pride. And, when he started to struggle, he kind of closed himself off from a lot of those guys. Right. And, so it was, I know, I think Terry Bradshaw said once, and everything that he knew Dad was struggling. A lot of people in Pittsburgh knew, but, a lot of them didn't know how to reach him or get out to him and let him know, hey, we can help you, the teammates and stuff. And I think a lot of them, I don't think they should feel, I understand them feeling bad. I mean, you should feel bad anytime another human being suffers, but they should not blame themselves in any kind of a way because my dad cut off relationships with people who would have helped him. And so, he was close. He always knew what was going on with everybody. He always kind of paid attention. I know he definitely had a soft spot in his heart for Terry Bradshaw and for the rest of his guys, and for Jack Hammond and it was funny. He'd get very protective of the team, growing up, because for us, it wasn't like Dad was a football player. He was just
right.
Dad. It didn't sink into us, and plus I was younger. I was only 4 when he left the Steelers, but for us, he was just Dad. So when I grew up, the team I rooted for was the 49ers, because I loved Joe Montana and stuff like that.
Right.
And I remember I always teased my dad about that, not really knowing, because, again, he was just Dad to me. We would have beat the Niners to death. They would never have done this. Or,
right.
I talked about Deion Sanders. He said, Rob Woodson was 100. Mel Blount was 100 times better, and stuff like that. So he wasn't close to them, but he definitely knew what was going on wrong.
Right. No, that's awesome. And Garrett, I'm glad you brought that up about people in the city of Pittsburgh, especially with feeling bad or, just wishing they could have done something. And I get a little choked, and I don't mean to, be this way. I get a little choked up about it. Obviously you've lived here, for close to 20 years, and we don't see these guys as, thanks for what you did as a player and good luck with your life. When people live in Pittsburgh and they play here, they're family. I do think there is some people that blame themselves in this city, and obviously I was a younger guy, I wasn't an adult, but do you feel bad at all, or do you wish people in the city of Pittsburgh didn't blame themselves? Because I know I've talked to hundreds of people whenever I announced we were talking, and people told me, man, if they would have known that, they would have done something, if anything, for them. So is there anything on your end that you like to address with that to a lot of people listening in the city of Pittsburgh?
I think that, first off, and I mean this from the bottom line, the people and the fans of Pittsburgh, and literally everyone we've interacted with, even the ones who, let's say, don't agree with, all the stuff that's going on with concussion and stuff, and we'll say, these guys kind of knew the risks or whatever you want to call it. They're always very respectful and always very willing to listen and to talk. And I maybe in the entire, 15 years, 16 years since my dad's passed away, I maybe had literally one negative interaction with somebody. Mm-hmm. And what I'd say is the Pittsburgh fans, not just for me, but I think that for my dad, for what he went through, for never making him feel, my dad's, when he would feel that he was struggling or he was having tough, it was never other people who made him feel that way. Even the people who would see him and knew he was going through a hard time, and it may sound weird, the fact that they, let's say, didn't go overboard to try to help him, that let him keep some kind of pride, that he had in himself. And that was, every human being needs self-respect and pride and stuff. And,
right.
It would have been great if somebody would have walked up and said, hey, here's, we'll pay for your hospital visit, or here's $10 million to pay your bills or whatever.
Right.
But you can't put a price sometimes on some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think it's a wonderful thing that I live in a city where, if you think about somebody who's just a football player can elicit the response of, I wish we would have done more to help this guy, and we care about him as a human being. Mm-hmm. And that right there is enough. I would never, and I know my dad would never want anyone to feel bad or to beat themselves up or anything like that. It was a bad thing, and there's a lot of fault there. Not just on other circumstances, but with my dad, with the family, with everything and stuff like that. And going back and trying to reopen that or feeling bad about it doesn't really accomplish anything anymore.
Right.
And it's, people have been wonderful to during and after my my dad passing away. And that to me is, you know, if they ever wanted to say, oh, well, we should have done more, whatever, that was more than anybody could ask. I mean, there's, you know, for whatever reason, my dad's story has, you know, stayed in the public, I don't know, was conscious or whatever, for, you know, years longer than so many other players who unfortunately have passed away or you know, died under tragic circumstances and stuff. And, you know, the people, the fans and everything are responsible for that. And now it's going to a place where this research, this concussion, brain injury awareness is helping not just football players, but, you know, military personnel, police officers, I mean, even construction workers or, you know, kids who, you know, grow up with mental disabilities and stuff like that. And that's, I know the greatest legacy of my dad is, you know, like I said, he viewed himself as just being a regular guy who was lucky enough to, you know, to play football. And, you know, I think that if that's his legacy, that he kind of has that, let's just say, regular person kind of legacy of, you know, of helping people out, I think that's what he'd want to be remembered for.
Right. Definitely. And so my next question for you here, when did you start seeing him struggle, and when did you start yourself, that you might have kept to yourself, when did you start getting concerned or worried, like, you know what, this is getting kind of serious here with him?
Well, I you know, when I grew up, when I was kind of, you know, let's say, you know, 4 or 5 years old, that's kind of the age where you start kind of recognizing, let's say, the world around you. And, you know, pretty much from that point, you know, I kind of caught, let's just say, the tail end of it. And at the tail end of the him being good and stuff like that.
Right.
You know, for pretty much everybody who, you know, my mom would say things, and from stuff I could remember is, you know, when we moved to Kansas City and when we left Kansas City, you know, things were really different. You know, I could tell. You know, I remember when we lived here in Pittsburgh in the 80s and stuff like that. You know, I remember my dad taking us out to the pool, throwing us around. I remember my dad being very, you know, active with the neighbors and getting to know them and you know, not being, let's just say, shy or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
You know, and then all of a sudden things change, you know, not just from a physical standpoint with his, you know, his health and being able to move and do things and stuff like that. He also changed mentally with, you know, kind of what he would enjoy or what he would pay attention to. You know, even growing up, even at 6 or 7 years old, you know, we could tell that, you know, not that we were ever, I mean, obviously, you know, these guys didn't make the money they're making today.
Right.
But, you know, we were never, quote unquote, rich, but we knew we were well off as kids.
Right.
You know, but then all of a sudden we'd get to, you know, 7, 8, 9 years old, and all of a sudden, you know, we learn about, you know, bills not being paid or our dad not being around or my dad sitting in a room being depressed all day and stuff like that, you know, and that's what we started growing up with.
Right.
And, you know, for me, that stuff really started to hit home, you know, when we got to Wisconsin, because that's, you know, when I kind of grew up to the point where I knew stuff. You know, I was adult enough to, you know, kind of see what was going on, and I remember him having health problems. I remember, you know, him missing my 10th birthday and you know, being, you know, him living out of hotels and stuff like that. And, you know, that was the stuff that I started to, you know, notice and remember, you know what I mean?
Right.
And, you know, he would destroy his memorabilia. He would, you know, he would always think that he wasn't any good. He was a terrible player. You know, nobody cared about him. You know, he never accomplished anything in his life and stuff like that. And it was, you know, it was depression. And that's something that I think hits home with a lot of people, because we've all, unfortunately, known somebody who's been depressed. It doesn't just affect people with head injuries or football players. It affects a lot of different people. And, you know, even, you know, my mom would sit there for hours telling him he was wonderful and a great player and a good husband and all this stuff. And it just would register with him. And that's when, you know, we kind of all knew something was going on. You know, we all sort of, I guess, in retrospect, you could say ignorantly thought that, you know, eventually he would, quote unquote, snap out of it. Because, you know, we always hear from all this, you know, and I think you saw this a little bit after he passed away, a lot of people thought that he would, they would talk about how brilliant he was as a player, how he would make all the line calls, how he would, help Terry Bradshaw run the offense and all this other kind of stuff. Even Terry has said many times, he relied on my dad to, make these, do all this stuff, to pick up the slack like a teammate does. And he couldn't do this stuff anymore. He couldn't manage the checkbook. He couldn't do things the quote-unquote head of the household should be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was, the things that we could never, wrap our head around of why that was changing. We hoped for a while that it was something, one of those, the athlete retires and, he doesn't have anything to do with his time or he's not used to normal life, quote-unquote.
Right.
He's eventually going to, kind of snap out of it. And that's what we kept hoping for. But eventually we just kind of got that, hey, that's not going to happen.
Right.
And, that's when things just kind of kept going downhill. We'd have moments of him, being his old quote-unquote self. But those moments became fewer and fewer, between. And it was difficult for us, but mostly it was difficult for him. He didn't understand what was going on, and none of us did. Nobody did.
Right.
And so it was definitely a hard situation.
Right. No doubt. And so he obviously played 17 years. He played a long time. Did your mom, and if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to. I just, if you feel comfortable, I'd like to know, did your mom and him, do you remember them ever having conversations like, hey, you know what, Mike, maybe it's time to wrap it up. Why don't you wrap it up at the year 10 or 11, 12 maybe? Why don't you get the commentating, make money, do that for the rest of your life? Was there any of those conversations, or was it basically he just wanted to keep playing football until he just was done?
Well, I think that, and my mom's kind of talked about this a couple times, and she's talked about it to me, is, pretty much after the 10th year or so, my dad started thinking about actually getting into coaching. A lot of people thought he was going to go off and be a head coach, and he actually had offers.
Right.
I think it was Forrest Gregg became the, I don't want to call him Forrest Gump because I just do that out of,
right.
reflex, but he became the head coach of Green Bay and actually talked to my dad about retiring and being the offensive coordinator.
Right.
But I know that my dad felt an extreme sense of loyalty to the Chief, to Art Rooney, and to Chuck Noll. And I think my dad didn't want to. My dad also, and I know he said this to me a couple times too, I think he wanted somebody in a way to come take his job. He wanted Jermani Dawson to eventually show up.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted that experience of training the next, because that's the thing. When you're an athlete of anything, you're not supposed to think of the bad things that could happen to you. If you're a police officer, you can't go out there and think about getting shot that day,
Right.
Or
right.
if you're a soldier, you can't think about going into battle and dying. So, even the guys who are playing now, if any of them are listening to this, I'd say the second you start thinking about concussions and what could happen,
right.
Retire, get out, don't stick around. But,
right.
So back then there was no, you have to get out right now or whatever. But because at the end of the day, even knowing everything that has happened to my dad, he was still Iron Mike, to me, to my mom, my family, everybody. He was the guy who didn't miss a game for, I think, 180 or something like that in a row, and stuff like didn't snap for punts and field goals and all those kinds of things. And, so there was that discussion, but it wasn't because, he was worried about injuries or something like that. It was because, was there, that better offer, or am I not enjoying the game anymore?
Mm-hmm.
So, from what I know is he pretty much, went, wanted to stick around. I know that there were some Steeler teams in that mid-'80s period where, my dad thought that they had a legitimate shot to win another Super Bowl. They went to, I think it was 84, 85. They went and got to the championship game against Miami. Unfortunately, Miami.
That was actually 83, I think, with Marino. And Dan Marino obviously had a pretty good day that day.
Yeah, and that was, I think that was the year that the Steelers could have drafted. Let's not get into the Marino to Pittsburgh.
Don't even get me started. I blame Bob Schmeizik for that whole thing. You heard that first from me. Bob Schmeizik lied about Dan Marino, but that's another story for another day we'll have.
But, that was, those were those things were going on. And I think, especially, I think the closest that it legitimately came to my dad retiring was from everything I've kind of heard from just what my dad used to say and my mom said is 86, I think, is when it really started to become, let's think about getting out. But I think at that point in time, from what my mom said is my dad, he was very loyal and really looked up to the chief, and he knew he wasn't in good health. So, I know he wanted to hopefully be part of the team that, would get him one more championship, and I think also, my dad thought he was going to retire a Steeler and end up being on the coaching staff, and stuff like that, and that's what he wanted to do. He didn't want to get into commentating and stuff like that, but that's what he enjoyed. So, there was that talk, it was kind of there, my mom would kind of bring it up that, both of them kind of had a, let's, talk about it. It wasn't, my dad's just going to decide he's going to retire one day, or my mom's going to tell him to retire, he will. My dad viewed it as, I've got, 3-4 beautiful kids, my wife's home taking care of the kids, and, I'm still enjoying playing football. I'm just going to keep doing that.
Right.
And, I think that's, what happened. But I think when, Jermani Dawson got here, I think one of the things my dad always took a lot of pride in was, when Jermani Dawson got drafted, they wanted to put him at guard, and my dad kept telling him, no, make him the center, because he had, so much talent, was so quick and stuff like that. And, he really kind of took that year that he had with Jermani to really kind of, teach him and install those things and stuff like that. And my dad took, not that he took credit for how good of a player Jermani became, but kind of to have that part in it, to help him and stuff. Mm-hmm. And that was something that was important to him, too, because it was kind of like he was leaving with somebody to take over. You know what I mean? And that's always a good feeling.
Right. And obviously, you spoke about the movie Concussion earlier. Obviously, you haven't seen it, but a lot of the viewers have, and myself. There is some anger towards the movie, but I want to ask you this question, and help me out if I pronounce this wrong. For Dr. Bennett Amoller or Dr. Bennett Amir? Amali. Thank you. For Dr. Bennett, I'll keep it short and simple at that. Is there happiness or a chapter closed of what your dad was going through Dr. Bennett? Is there any anger, or is there any appreciation? If you don't mind me asking, how is your? I'll just ask you, how are your feelings towards Dr. Bennett?
Oh, I love Bennett Amali. Hopefully I can call him a friend. I mean, I worked with him for a while when I did some work with a concussion group and stuff like that. And Bennett Amali is an absolutely, wonderful guy and an amazing doctor. I mean, Mike Webster wasn't the first football player to die prematurely. Right. And every other doctor didn't say, hey, let's examine this brain and see if we can find something, different. And it took somebody like Bennett Amali, and the fact that maybe he grew up kind of not in this country where, I think that we kind of look at football or whatever and kind of say, they're football players, stuff happens, blah, 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 blah. It took him to say, well, why would somebody who's, kind of removed enough from the situation for him to think, hey, why did this guy struggle so much? This guy that everybody would talk about being so brilliant and so this, that, and the other thing, why would he have such a bad life after football? And that was something Bennett did. And like I said, for whatever reason, my dad's story has, kind of stuck around and stayed in the public conscious and stuff like that. And, let's say maybe, it was another player or something. Maybe it doesn't have as much of an impact and doesn't have the chance to help, how many other people that aren't football players. Right. It helps PTSD, helps all these kinds of things. That was a gift that Bennett Amali gave my dad. And obviously
Right.
You know, he helped his legacy and helped a bunch of people, and he should be applauded for that. You know, I didn't see the movie, and none of that was because of I wasn't happy about it or anything like that. It was because I lived the movie. I don't.
Right.
It would be very difficult for me to watch, and there's no reason for me to, let's just say, put myself through that again.
Right.
You know, so I would, you know, it was not something that, you know, I knew I probably wasn't never going to watch. Probably never will watch. I've watched a few clips of it, but I'm very proud for Bennett. And anybody who's ever interacted with him or seen an interview with him, he's a very warm and good man. You know, he's got this kind of enthusiasm. He's got some things that deal with, let's just say, our public kind of attitude towards football that or whatever that might come off wrong.
Right.
But it's not because he doesn't respect it. It's because he, you know, again, he's not from America. He doesn't understand those things. Or he, like all doctors, they kind of look at, they're able to look at things from the outside, you know.
Right.
And you know, that's why doctors are doctors, you know, that they have that mental capacity to shut off to a certain way, you know, and they're able to, you know, and I asked, you know, a doctor this one time, or he was telling me this, is that, you know, doctors aren't, you know, they tell you don't get, you know, attached to your patients. And it's not because, you know, you should be uncaring and all this other stuff. It's because you can't go to an operating room or a treatment or even a autopsy trying to look for something. You need to go in with a blank mind and treat things the best way. You can't set yourself up for, you know, if something goes wrong in the operating room for you to be completely devastated, you know, by it. You know what I mean? You've got to try to stay at a level head, and it's something Bennett's able to do just like all doctors are. So I have absolutely nothing but love and respect for Bennett Amaro. He's one of the best men I've ever met, and he's a great guy.
Thank you, Garrett. That's great stuff. And for everybody who's tuning in here and listening, I am on with Garrett Webster, son of the Hall of Fame, NFL Hall of Fame, Pittsburgh Steelers Hall of Fame, Mike Webster. So, Garrett, a few more questions for you here, and I'll let you go. So, what do you want? And I'll ask you. It's kind of three parts to this here, but it's one question. What do you, not your family, what does Garrett Webster want his dad's legacy be? Is it potentially saving lives with the CTE and the fame that's happened to it? Do you want your dad to be known for the Pittsburgh Steeler champion, Hall of Famer, stud, probably, my opinion, the best center of all time? Or do you just want your dad to be known for and legacy be known as just dad?
I think there's part of me that wants a little bit of all that. You know, I think that, I think that's something that has gotten lost over the last, I mean, even before my dad passed away, how much he enjoyed playing football, and how good he was at it. And some of that, too, is probably a guilt because growing up, you know, we didn't know how big of a deal Dad was and how good he was.
Right.
And a lot of that, too, is obviously football wasn't the thing it is today, you know,
right.
And stuff like that. You know, linemen still, not like now, but back then, you know, linemen kind of were just linemen.
Right.
But, you know, I'd like that to be, you know, a big part of his legacy, the impact he had on the city. His charity work he did while he was playing, you know, he took a lot of pride in the work he did for Spina Bifida. I think he was, for a long time, one of the highest money-raising athletes in Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh area, you know, and stuff like that, you know, and I think that is very important. We want to yearn for that. But also, realistically and truthfully, I mean, as wonderful as winning 4 Super Bowls and all that kind of stuff are, saving a life and you know, not destroying the game at all or changing the game, but making it safer and saving lives outside of just football. That's more important than winning 1 game or 4 games or something like that. So, you know, that's stuff that, you know, I hope he's remembered for. And you could say arguably is probably his most important legacy. But, you know, that's, you know, also being a dad, you know, is
right.
There is nothing he loved more than being a dad. And, you know, it's important that people see sees everybody with their flaws, with their humanity, with, you know, the things they love, the things they did wrong, the mistakes, and their triumphs. And, you know, my dad loves, you know, you were asking about his hobbies and stuff like that. His hobbies and his enjoyment in life, even when things were bad or good, you know, were pretty simple things. And, you know, I think we can all take lessons from that. You know, not everybody has to feel, you know, like my dad, you know, he would feel like, oh, I need to do more with my life or something like that. Or people in Wisconsin would look at him as just being a dumb football player and stuff like that. He really didn't matter. But, you know, you don't need to do that, you know, to judge yourself always by different things, you know. It can just be being a great dad or being great at your profession or being a good husband or whatever. And, you know, I think all of that is my dad's legacy.
Right.
You know, and I want him to be remembered for all of those things. And it's an honor, honestly, to be to kind of look back, you know, at some point in time, you know, whenever, you know, I pass away and head to the pearly gates or you know, wherever, go meet Buddha in the sky or those things.
Right.
You know, I can sit there and I can say that I was lucky enough to, as tough as it was at times, I was lucky enough and given the honor of being part of my dad's story, of helping people that are on this earth.
Yeah.
That aren't me, that people that I'll probably never meet. And it sucks that my dad had to struggle. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wish my dad was still alive. I wish he never had problems. I wish, you know, I wish just thousands of these things, different things would happen. But, you know, if it's going to happen, you know, and you can be the person to be part of that, then you have to rise up to that honor and do the best you can at it, you know, and you know, I never have to sit around, and my dad would never have to sit around, and none of my family would ever sit around saying, "Oh, my life didn't mean anything." Right. So, you know, that's the great part of what we went through is that, you know, and it's not about money, it's not about anything like that. I mean, even if, you know, we obviously have some stuff going around with the NFL with getting quote unquote payment or whatever, you know. If none of that ever happens, if we never get any money, there's no other things, even if Mike Webster's story is ended tomorrow afternoon, we can sit back and say, Dad made an impact, and we were all part of that.
Right.
And that means, you know, that's a huge honor to be part of and to be given. Absolutely.
And a few more things here, Garrett. So what would... And best way to put it, obviously you're not your dad, but, you know, you had a lot of years with your dad, and you know him best more than anybody else, of course. What would Mike Webster, the man, say to the whole city of Pittsburgh right now if he was here? And what would he say to the people who feel sorrow and feel that they should have been there? What would he tell? And I'm not talking about football and sports. Sports is a small part of Mike Webster. There's more to Mike Webster. What would he tell the people that cared about him so much in this great city of Pittsburgh?
I think he would tell them to, you know, not feel that way. I think that the last thing my dad would want them to feel is, you know, to sit around and tell sad stories or, you know, let the things that he went through stop them from living their lives or stop them from being happy and stuff like that. You know, it's like, you know, I've been asked a couple times, you know, what advice would I give to somebody playing who wants to play football or their family or, you know, do I hate football or whatever? And sort of like the same thing is no. You know, if somebody, there's a lot of things in life that are worth. The only things in life that are worth doing is usually there's some kind of risk involved, whether it's small or large. And you got to take that risk sometimes. Now, you should be made aware of them, but, you know, you need to take them at times. And I think the city of Pittsburgh was there for my dad in so many ways that you can't really put you know, can't quantify in the right way.
Right.
You know, if there's people who, you know, want a way to quote unquote honor my dad, you know, go play catch with your kids tonight. You know, go, you know, go out and enjoy yourself. You know, have a root beer float, watch a John Wayne movie. You know, those are the things that my dad enjoyed. People want other people to enjoy. You know, he probably cracked some joke about, you know, the Steelers getting their stop talking trash and start winning games. But
Right.
you know, that would probably be the main thing. You know, is that he wouldn't want people to walk around thinking sad thoughts or think that his legacy is he made people sad or he made depression, because he knows a lot of people who helped him and stuff like that.
Mm.
And, you know, I think that that's what he would want people to realize is that, you know, things, didn't, let's just say, end the way everybody obviously wanted them to. But, you know, there was a lot of good times along the way, you know, and there was a lot of, you know, it's like, you know, those old Super Bowls, you know, you know, you to get to that Super Bowl, you know, it's a song, you know, and you find out what champions really are when you're down by 14 going into the fourth quarter. You know, you can't say you're a champion, you know, if you only act like it when you're up by 35 points, you know, with 2 minutes left.
Right.
And, you know, things didn't go great, but what everybody should do is treat people better, try to help out everyone that you can. Don't think you're better than everyone else, and you know, try to live a good life.
Right, right. And Garrett, I just want to tell you, you know, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for letting me speak to you on the show and you being so open and honest about everything. I'm very humbled. I'm very honored, and I would love sometime, if you're ever free, to go get the tallest beer there is in the world and go get the greasiest pizza there is in Pittsburgh and just chat and shoot the breeze and just talk some more. I would love to do that if there's ever the chance.
For sure, Drew. Maybe we'll do a WrestleMania special this year. If you do one, you can have me on.
That, you know what? You got a deal, brother. I appreciate it, Garrett. Thank you so much for this tonight.
All right, Drew. You have a good night, all right?
You too, Garrett. Have a great weekend. All right, man?
Yep, all right.
Bye-bye. All right, guys. So, obviously, I had Garrett Webster, the son of Pittsburgh Steelers and NFL Hall of Fame Mike Webster, on. Just phenomenal show. Just great stuff with Garrett. He's such a great guy, great person, for giving me this platform opportunity, and I am humbled and honored. I will have my next guest announced via my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'm just still a little choked up and emotional about it. This means a lot to me. Just if you guys know me as a person, you know I'm a big sports-oriented guy. My family is, so this stuff hits home, especially my aunt who passed away a few years ago. She's a season ticket holder for 30 years, so this stuff is near and dear to my heart. So greatly appreciate everybody that listened and was here tonight. Thank you guys so much. And I'll be on either this weekend or I'll be on next week. So I'll announce that soon. Pay attention. God bless. Love you guys and have a great night. Be safe.